going on, man?
Joe Downey.
How you doing, brother?
The legend.
I don't know.
Good, man. Just enjoying this beautiful Arizona weather. It's only 77 out and just loving every minute of it.
It's good to see you this week, my friend.
Yeah.
Top 500.
Can I say this? I think I'm still hungover from 2 days ago because it just happens that way.
You can say whatever you want. Yeah, it does happen that way.
I was hungover from the happiness of seeing you, Joe.
I was about to say, maybe I'll try that excuse next time with my better half. No, it was good. It was epic for me, as you know. I celebrated a wedding anniversary in the middle of it. So,
yeah, I finally got to meet your wife. That was cool.
Yeah, a lot of people I think were like, "Oh, actually, our good friend BG was like, didn't believe she was real."
Yeah, you okayed your coverage, dude.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I was glad she was able to. Was cool, I should say. I shouldn't say able. She can do what she wants, but cool enough to celebrate our wedding anniversary as we kicked off Top 500. And that's what I wanted to figure you and I could do today was maybe bring, for a lot of people that couldn't attend or didn't attend, whatever reason, kind of bring some of our takes back, kind of different roles that we have within our own respective businesses, plus just our own perceptions. So figured we could share that today. And then last minute, figured we better inject some real energy into this talk. So I invited a surprise guest. Let's see if I can bring him in, if I can figure out technology here. Oh, there he is, Mr. Kyle Sellers.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude's a legend.
So I'm down here laughing because now I know why I got a last minute invite, because you wanted to make it real. You're like, there's people that couldn't be there. Let's call a guy that couldn't be there and say, hey, brother, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Here I am.
Yeah, it was Kyle, it's good to see you though. I'm serious about that.
Oh my gosh, my friend. Great to see you too. We need to break some bread soon. You too,
yeah.
Chris. Joe, thanks for the invite, Chris. Great to be here with you guys.
Yeah, it's been a while, Kyle, since we've actually seen it. We used to see each other all the time. So I'm heading back to the frozen tundra of Wisconsin in November. So we should get together for a cigar.
100%, my man. You just missed some great weather here. You're coming back just in time for the Wisconsin Arctic. So, but you know that.
Yep.
How is it there, Kyle?
It looks beautiful. So we just finished, I mean, probably much like a lot of the country. I mean, we just finished a fantastic late summer, like early fall, absolutely gorgeous. The color up here was great. And now it just completely plummeted. Like we couldn't have Halloween 2 days ago when it was like 77. We have to have Halloween last night when it's a 77 mile an hour wind and 50 degrees. But, you know, but the kids came back with bags of candy. You know, Wisconsin's been great. So.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
It looks beautiful. And I almost went outside on the patio to go have a stogie and hang out with you two, but I'm a little too fair weather for that.
Yeah, you guys are getting, man, when it gets wintry, it gets wintry. Real deal there, brother.
For sure.
At least you're at least both of you are fans of, at least your Packers look good.
Well, Kyle's not a Packer fan. I am.
Oh, Kyle, what are you?
I am an Atlanta Falcon fan, you know, to go back and I guess since we're on a place for stories, I grew up in the best state in the union. I grew up in Iowa, and back in 5th grade, our professional football team, they weren't worth a crap, but Deion Sanders and Andre Rison, you know, were really, I mean, So I have been an Atlanta Falcon fan since 5th grade, never traded on them. If we had to go to a Super Bowl and lose like that, you know, to lose to Brady, that was okay. But I'm a Falcon fan. But I love watching the Packers. And I have a ton of respect for the organization because of just how they operate. There's so much that they do that I think is fantastic. I love watching them. Even better when I can watch them lose.
Heck yeah. Fair enough. I'll give you that. I just read I thought about you the other day because I was reading a book about a famous wrestler from your state of Iowa. Dan, was it Dan? Crap. That sounds. How do you bring up a topic and you don't even have the information, Joe? Great job.
Dan Gable.
There you go. Sorry.
Wrestling, not just a wrestler, but like the wrestling coach.
Yeah.
At the time.
Oh, legend.
Oh yeah. Like, who is your rugby team? The New Zealand All Blacks, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, like set up like the All Blacks of college wrestling. Unreal.
Yeah, his story, but yeah, his record, it's not even I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. And I've heard him talked about a lot and then saw a book about him, so started reading it. But anyway, Sean Hilgart's here. Bill Wilcom joined us. These guys are so supportive. Yes, Sean, Kyle does watch football on a Sunday or a Monday, depending, and now a Thursday, and soon to be a Saturday night in the NFL. Soon, sometime around Thanksgiving, I think that starts.
The money must be made, Mr. Dennis.
Oh, this is a good way to kick it off. Or maybe it's not. Who cares? We always talk in selling about the perception of a good deal. You got to have the perception of a good deal before someone pulls the trigger, right? They got to feel unique. Kind of falls in that world. We also talked, I'm sure, before about how free, no matter what, still works. So my better half that I opened up with, Chris and I talking about, came home. I came home and I said, she said, hey, I just went to our local warehouse store, Costco, whatever it is. I think it is Costco. And she's like, they had a deal. If you spend $200 between now and Thanksgiving, you get a free turkey. So long story short is I just bought a $200 turkey. And then I realized we don't even host Thanksgiving. Like, we don't even cook a turkey. So not only did it work for somebody to get somebody to buy something we didn't need, but to probably overpay for it, I'd say a little bit. So anywho, thought that was a good way to kick this thing off. Chris, who is your favorite presenter at top 500? Just high level and why?
You know, it's Joe, you were saying this the other day. We text and talk a lot, but you know, I love when Brian speaks, Brian Gottlieb, and I don't do it just because I know him. He's bringing content. And you know, a lot of these other folks, not that they didn't, there was a lot actually, this wasn't bad. Like the last year top 500 was great, but they talked a lot about PE, and it was like selling. It was like, okay, let's get past. I want some content. I want some good stuff some gold nuggets I can take back and apply to my business. And, you know, reading Brian's book, and then I've watched Brian. He's done trainings a lot, but it's fun to watch him because now he's transitioning into a different stage in his life. And it was a whole new speech that I haven't seen from Brian before. And it's a different angle now, and it's really fun to watch him just perform on stage because he's an absolute performer.
He's into it, isn't he?
Yeah. And then then Billy Bean was freaking great too.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
He you know, he's just explained his story, and it's always about, and I'm a data guy. Like, it's all about everything inside of our business. I have my KPI doc that sits open on my screen right next to me. You know, it's about the numbers. It's what levers to pull. And to watch how he did that in baseball was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's probably one of my big takeaways. I think after he spoke, I was like, meet me out in the corridor. I want to tell you something. And you were probably like, oh God, here we go. The Brian Gottlieb thing, I think you hit the nail on the head. Not only are we, all of us, fortunate to probably be in active pretty regular communication with him. But every time he does get on stage, one, he's extremely well prepared. And two, it's not the same old stuff. And then the other point real quick was, last year, wasn't there, if I remember when you talk about the PE conversation, there was like an argument on stage. It was bad. Like, that wasn't good. This year, I noticed it was good to see some new faces, because there's a lot of companies that are sleepers in this business that I found out about.
Yep.
I'll tell you, up until a few months ago, I don't know if you saw him speak, but just because he's local and the company founded locally here in Maryland, Jeff Gunhaus, who owns Home Genius, spoke.
Yes.
I mean, that's a new name and face from, I think it said, I'm trying to remember exactly, but I think it said something like they scaled 0 to 150 million in 7 years.
Yep, that's what it was.
Right. And, to have him on stage and have some other, I mean, there are quite a few other names. Vince Vendetti from Premier Home Pros. I'm real good friends with his business partner.
Those guys are, I want to know what the heck they're like. I want to go see their business. How do you go from 0 to 100 million in 2 years? Like
2. Yeah. Yeah. I was fortunate enough to work. I call him AJ. His business partner's I guess his legal name is August Wadian, but I called him AJ. Worked with him for many years at Window Nation. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, he cut his teeth in the industry maybe in Erie before that. And I don't want to speak for him, but even our time together at Window Nation, just an Ohio guy with that blue collar mentality of just go get it. So, I mean, again, that's not going to do it for you, but that's definitely a starting point, right? Is to get after it. So yeah.
Like, I thought my numbers are going to be impressive, but I'm like, holy cow, these guys are just unheard of.
In a space that I, again, don't want to speak for him, but I'm pretty certain in my friendship with him, I know for a fact he wasn't in baths at all prior to launching that company.
Yeah, I don't know that, but
yeah, he was an exterior guy his entire career through and through, and we've always talked personally about baths, and then next thing you know, here comes Premier Bath. I was like, wow, okay. So, Kyle, what's up? My bad.
This is the one that went from 0 to 100 in just a couple of years.
Yeah. So the first gentleman I brought up, Home Genius, they did exteriors 0 to 150 million in 7 years.
Yeah.
And then the other group, Premier Home Pros, 0 to 100 million in 2.
Yeah. Were they just recognized, or did they speak?
Both spoke.
Yeah. Chris, you said that there were some things, and then it's like, how do I, like, what does that mean for my business? What were your takeaways that you would apply or that if you could go back and change something?
Well, it sounds like what Premier Homes did is they had 3 owners, all of them kind of in the home improvement space. From what if I remember, there's so much that was said there, but they self-funded it and they just went bonkers. Like, I think they just all had a ton of money and just invested a ton of money in marketing, like slammed it all into marketing and then just sold. So that's why I'm curious, like, again, they don't give everything, and I would like to go.
They don't always lift up the hood for you, right?
Right. So, okay. Hopefully they watch this and they could get a hold of us. But like, I know doing this so long that you have to scale like this, or you're going to get too top heavy, right? You can outsell easily, outsell, and then you have a lot of fall off because you're not able to get it in, right? Not able to get the product or install it. So I'm curious on what that looks like that they didn't talk about. He talked a lot about marketing.
Yeah. Well, that's what the people that are there want to hear, right?
Yep.
I think that's the biggest holdup, though, for small companies that, ultimately say, hey, I want to do more. It's having the marketing machine well invested, and then having the ROI with a sales system that, you know what I mean? So what am I getting at? It's like, I remember in beginning of my career, there were other companies that were like, oh my God, you guys invest 15% of 100 million. That's $15 million a year in marketing. And I go, yeah, but it's all relative. If you know that your sales system is going to bring you back X amount of dollars per dollar invested, I'd go take a loan for another couple hundred, another 10 million if I could, right? Like, I mean, obviously the markets hit a point where you're just putting bad money into it. But if you have a sales team with a process that even at budgeted numbers, they're going to bring you back, say 30%, net, whatever close, like but I think they're some of the smaller companies, because every time they hear those big numbers, that's what they got to get their head wrapped around. It's like, how could I ever spend that on SEO? I'm like, because you have a sales team that's going to go get you $10 per dollar invested, or whatever the number ends up being. Yeah. And that's a hard, if you're not confident either A, in in your marketing, and B, but more importantly, in your sales team. That's your ROI. But it's,
Well, wasn't it Brian that says, it's the disciplines that create the profits? I don't know if Brian says that. I know he said it often, but that's what it comes down to. So if you're disciplined with the numbers in marketing, you're disciplined with your sales process, and you're disciplined with your installation, you can have a phenomenal business in this industry.
Yeah.
But it comes down to the disciplines.
By the way, fun fact, don't shortcut both of you on this call. You did go from 0 to 100 million in 18 months.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be honest, right? With a different business. But so it's, you know what to do with your new business.
But one of the challenges that I found with that, Joe, and I know we're just kind of having an open conversation on this, and this is like a normal talk between the three of us anyways. It's what happens to culture when you do it that quickly. That's the other thing that I want to know about. Like, how do you keep a strong culture? Because we've seen that, right? When we built that, the culture got a little foggy over here, a little messy over here. How do you reel that back in? And, so when I started this business, that was one of the things that I really wanted to focus on. Was that first 18 months was build the foundation and have a good culture and get the processes and disciplines in place. Now I'm at that point where 2025, I'm looking to launch probably 2 or 3 markets. So if that's the case, there's no reason that I'm not able to go from 0 to 70 million in 2 years. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
And I have the solid team to help that. I have the processes. Everything's almost mapped out 100%, where I don't know if anybody else is listening that uses Trainual. We're committed to Trainual. Like, we truly are committed to it. It's a freaking process to put everything in there. But I know once it's in there, it's going to be so accessible to even how to change the toilet paper in the bathroom. Like, it's every SOP inside of our business. If somebody doesn't know how to result a lead, they can pull it up, and it's going to give them step-by-step or a video on how to do it. So that's what I'm curious about, Premier Homes. How do they do that? How are they keeping that strong? How are they? I have a lot of questions for those guys.
I'll get AJ. I'm sure AJ would be happy to join us sometime on this. But you hit on the nail on the head. I think Jeff from Home Genius spoke about it, or was one of his talking points, was you got to have the right first team, meaning that leadership team, whether they're actual partners in the business or just your key hires initially. I think that was his first step. And that he talked about was having the right first team before. And then the second part you said is something I tell, just friends that are starting their business. I'm like, man, one, it doesn't happen if you don't document it. But 2 is, before you scale, you have to have those things black and white, because the minute you bring on, Kyle remembers this, and BG would tell us, hey guys, you got a huge class you're getting ready to launch, 20 some people, this is when culture starts to get a little wonky if you don't hold on to it. And it did. And it definitely did. But, so there's a lot. I mean, you just dropped a bunch of value that alone. That was kind of from that take. But yeah, we can definitely I'm sure I can get AJ to join us. I'll send him a message sometime to get him on here. It was his partner who spoke, but I think, the other side that I'll personally say about him and them is they're sales minded first, not operationally minded. And I'm nothing against operations. Obviously, we've got a few friends in the operations side of the business on the call now, but if you can't sell it, I don't, no offense, I don't give a crap how good you are at installing it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
it all has to work together, right?
Totally does. Totally.
A couple quick takeaways or comments from what I've heard so far. One is Chris, on the culture side of things, and I mean, this is just a comment. If I could go back and change something about that experience and I don't have like some solid, like tangible things for this, but I would have found ways to not so much fight the culture change, but embrace it. Like, how do you duplicate culture? Well, you do, but you don't. That to find the ways to really duplicate what's important with the core and embrace the change. And again, I don't necessarily have tangible, like, this is how you do that, but that's one that's one takeaway from our time that is one of my takeaways from our time there. But the other one goes towards your comments of Trainual and documenting the processes, and you are spot on. And I was just thinking of that through the lens of sales reps and sales leaders, and I mean business leaders too. But the one unthought about advantage to documenting things is how much it forces you to think about what you're doing, and how much that it forces you to actually analyze before you put things down. Because the benefit of having it documented is fantastic, but the benefit of doing it and going through the process is in some ways even better. And it kind of brought me back to just a trip down memory lane when I was originally writing like leadership selling and through what became the Tunderland University. And that first task, to write a unified sales model, and any sales model development like any sales model development since then, just how much that it forces you to think about, like, why am I doing this? Like, how could I do it better? What am I actually doing? What is actually successful? And to tie that back into sales reps, if there's people out there driving right now, and, I'm not saying like document your sales model or rewrite your sales model, but anytime that you think about, or anytime that you spend and invest in like actually documenting what you do and what makes you successful is going to come back, so much fold for you. When I would teach and when I would train and when I spend time working with people, part of my understanding of the craft comes from doing it and comes from the practice. But another part of it also comes from just knowing the foundation, because I spent so much time thinking about it.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on. The other thing about when it's documented, and I have to remind this all the time, a lot of sales reps only typically look at that manual, say it's their sales process manual during that classroom time, maybe first 30 days. And then they it ends up in the trunk somewhere if it's physical, or just never open back up whatever kind of LMS system it's housed in. And I think it's like anything. It's like a good book. If you reread it, and as your perspective changes and as your experience, as you gain more experience, you read the same words, but you perceive them differently. And now you start to look back and go, oh my God, now, I've run 100 appointments. Now I know what the hell Kyle was talking about when he said this. And it doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's funny to that point too, Joe. Like when I started this business over, I had to start doing sales training because that's what you have to do when you start a business. I was going through the model and just touching it back up and, going, and I'm like, we forget more than we remember. What I mean by that, there's like 10 closes in there that I'm like, holy cow, like, how did I forget these? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then go back and start rereading it. So just to bounce off of that really quick too. So I had a guy, one of my sales reps, he was with me from the beginning since I started, and he was struggling. I brought on a different rep from a different company, and it's kind of negative Nancy. I was taking that guy down, and I fought him, and I got one guy left, and the guy stayed, and he told me, he's like, I'll give you, I'm going to head out next week. I'll give you some time since I've been with you. And it's not too often that us as owners want to keep that guy, but I had a feeling, right? And I didn't just kick him to the curb like we do. And it was the Saturday, it was going to be his last day running. And he calls me and he texts me. He's like, hey, can I talk to you? Yeah. What's up, man? Like, he's like, hey, I've been really thinking about it, and I don't want to leave. He's like, I appreciate you. I don't think anybody can handle me like you do, so on and so forth. And I said, yeah, man, you're more than welcome to stay, but we got to get you back to the basics. I need you to find your book, dust the cobwebs off. And that first week and a half, he closed a couple and went on a tear and closed 9 out of 9. But he's in our weekly sales meeting. He's got the book.
Yep.
This guy's been in the field for 3-4 years, right? That kind of built his own thing, but he's getting back to the fundamentals. And it was really cool to see, like, he's participating, his belief, right? Just believe back into the company and himself, and it's crazy how getting back to the fundamentals and belief is the only thing you need to be successful in this business. A little hard work, but you know, if you really think about it, if you believe in what you're doing and the company you're with and yourself, and you got a system.
Yeah.
Hello.
It was funny because I told some of the guys with our team now, everybody's like, how was the conference? And I was like, nothing new sometimes under the sun, but there was a couple of those moments, especially from a sales perspective. There were a few speakers that were, basically sales management specific. And, some of the things that they covered weren't, again, they were probably from, Rick Grosso days. I don't know, from Yoho, who knows, right? But it was like, oh my gosh, my light bulbs are going off in my head. And then I remember a quote, I don't know who said it, I don't want to botch it, but if you don't teach it, you lose it. And it's so true. So if we don't, like you just said, you probably hadn't taught sales training or done anything with specifically with a rep for a few years at least, right? And now you're back teaching a class, you're going through the manual to make sure you can teach it, which you can, but because it is like riding a bike. But there are those little aha moments like that are like, crap, I totally forgot that, which also means that I have reps that don't know it.
It doesn't take long to get rusty, but the good thing is though, is it doesn't take long to knock the rust off either. Once
Correct.
that's the other side of that coin.
That's the old phrase, and this, I don't know if I posted about sharpen your axe, right? Or you got to keep sharpening your axe. The one reason it can, especially in our business, because it's very monotonous as a salesperson. That's another reason you got to sharpen your axe. That thing just gets dull every day when you're hitting the same tree 3 times a day, maybe even more, depending on what you sell. That's where, you see very, very established veteran reps, and then you go on a ride with them and they're just like, whoa. I'm like, what is that? There's no energy. There's no belief. There's no enthusiasm. And that's because it's very monotonous. I mean, it's 3 times a day saying the same thing. That's the hardest part of the business, is staying disciplined and reminding yourself, this is the first time that this customer has seen my show. I know I've done it 500 times this year already, but this is the first time this person has seen it.
And again, forgetting some of those things, I believe Kyle, I think it was back at a couple companies before, to earn their bonus, they actually had to go see a raving fan, a customer.
Yep.
And that went away. And I just we're doing some custom glass stuff on a couple of these jobs out here. And we're trying to get really good pictures because I found a really great glass company. And so I sent my assistant and the marketing specialist out to the home to take some pictures and give a little gift basket. And, the lady was crying. She was so happy. She was so grateful what we did. Yep. And the 2 girls came back like just a spark under their, you know what I mean? It wasn't even sales reps. It's just 2 people. They came back and were like running around and telling everybody about it. Like, I'm getting back to, okay, Mr. Designer, get your butt back to your customer. Go talk to them. Why did they buy from you? What did they love about us? Because that will trigger the belief again. So anybody that's listening, and if you're not sending your reps back to the customers, or you're a rep yourself, get your butt back to your customers and have a conversation with them.
For sure. I mean, Chris,
was that your mic drop, also known as a dry eraser drop or dry eraser marker drop?
Yeah.
Jeez, flip.
I so agree with that. I mean, as BG, I think that he'd be, the first one to say it, that he talks about the business getting transactional, and he's absolutely correct. That it becomes more transactional, and getting back to that emotional side of it. Even as we were talking about, man, I so miss going back and visiting sunroom customers and going in and seeing their beautiful glass roof sunroom. And it helps you tell the story from the home. But it also just stirs up emotion to this day, even thinking about that. And then when I bring it into training and working with other organizations, almost any sales rep out there for any type of company, at some point, you're going to make the case that what you're selling for this customer, that it's a good investment, right? And I know where that is specifically in different organization sales models, but it doesn't really matter where that it's at. When it comes to that time, most sales reps and most people think about it through that lens of, that a great investment means that what you're paying for what you're getting and, for what it adds to the home. And of course, that the ROI, the financial side of it is super important. But when you go back and visit customers, that's not what they say, and it brought me back with, with being with those sunroom customers, when that you it's, oh my gosh, we love this room. I wish I would have done this years ago. We should have gone a little bit bigger, man, really like that. My only regret was not going the extra 2 feet. And it's like, yeah, they paid a lot of money for it. And they still view it as, they're like, we did pay a lot of money for this. But the good news is we freaking love it, yeah, that's why it's so important, because, man, that was one thing that I did right, or I was allowed to do right, or taught to do right early in the day, was go back and visit customers and go see them and bring other customers, bring them on a sunroom tour where we'd go see a glass roof conservatory. I think that had a big impact on my success.
I don't have to go see customers to realize and hear I should have gone bigger, but I get your point.
Yep.
Sorry, little joke there. But you remember, so as Warren Buffett said, price is what you get, price is what you pay, value is what you get. Sales reps only see price until they go watch or install. So they never get to see the actual value.
Yeah.
When I heard that quote, I was like, oh my God. It just drives home that fact of like, see all that's happens from point of sale on definitely helps you when you're trying to explain it in the home. Because otherwise, to people, they think it's a plastic window, it's a plastic bathtub, it's this. No. There's a lot more to it than that. Yeah, that's a big takeaway. The other one is, Chris, you just brought up a great idea. If you think about it, like in the military, and I know in certain martial arts, you have to go back and requalify like every year. So in like the military, if you want to have a certain firearm license or whatever they have, you have to qualify on it every year. If in the my brother participates in I think it's like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I think he's required to go back and take like whatever white belt classes every year. You know what I mean? Because they don't want you to forget the fundamentals, even though he could be black belt. I don't know what it is, whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So why not just have your reps requalify every December?
I do know a company that does do that out there.
Yeah. Maybe maybe we just discovered something. There's gonna be reps on here that are like, screw you, bucko. Don't shut up.
Thanks, Downey.
Yeah, stop saying that.
But stop sharing your Facebook page.
Yeah. Remember? Crash. This is where everything went off the deep end. Moneyball, Billy Beane. Chris, you brought it up. He was the keynote speaker. That's one thing. That's one feedback I will say to Top 500, and I'm sure it's not cheap, but have the keynote speaker go longer. I mean, nothing against the other presenters, but I mean, I feel I don't know. I just don't think the time allotted. It's like, man, he could have really gone long. I know he could have. He even said he had to speed up, but I was reviewing his slides, and the thing that I wanted to bring up was, I almost jumped up in the middle of his presentation and like screamed to the top of my lungs with excitement. But I've told you after is he used a great example of basically the importance of process over outcome, something I post about on here all the time. He didn't use those exact words, but he was like, you have a hitter in the major leagues who absolutely rips the ball off a cover on a particular pitch, and the outfielder, I think he said Mookie Betts, makes a diving catch. He's like, but if you look at the result, it's an out for the hitter and his average goes down. The pitcher's ERA went down, even though he just got ripped. And, the outfielder making not an everyday type catch, obviously will be on Sports Center. And we ran out after after his keynote was over and looked right at Chris. And I was like, because he brought up, how do you coach that hitter in that situation? He thinks, most people would say he failed. No, he just did everything to a T, and the other player made a great play, right? And the hitter or the pitcher got lucky that he didn't give up an extra base hit because of his player, right? And he brought up that great point where he's like, if you just are looking at the results, it doesn't tell the story when it comes to assessing an individual, and in our case, it'd be a sales rep. How many of us have ever gone into a home to watch a rep, ride along with a rep, who absolutely is a debacle, but maybe because of the brand or maybe because of whatever, maybe the person already had 5 other companies out. I don't know, but he gets you get the sale and you walk out of that home and you're like, as the manager, and you're like, oh, how do I explain to him that he really didn't, he just threw up for 90 minutes, but still got a successful result versus the other guy who hits a home, basically hits the cover off the ball and you still get to the close and the customer says no because they just, they don't want it or something. You got to assess your reps against the process, not the outcome, in my opinion, if you want to drive consistency. And I think that's what he was talking about with Moneyball was like, you tell that hitter, do the same thing every time. There's no coaching needed. You just ripped it, but the guy made a great play. And for that moment, he beat you, if you want to say it that way, right? Same thing in the home. If you do your job and there's still going to be some chances that the customer just says no. And I don't know. That was my, like, as you know, Chris, I was like, meet me out in the atrium. This was unreal. I mean, I was so excited. He
literally came running towards me. Like,
excited. That's it. Kyle gets it. Kyle would have done the same thing. Kyle would have been up there with him doing, right? Hey, let's get our arm loose before this game, Billy. I don't know. He was good, and you got to read the book because the other thing that his other point I thought was, how do you get more out of people? I don't know, take it. Not. I don't want to say it. I'm going to say it the wrong way, but one of the things he proved was I could hire somebody that was actually better than what the industry perceived for a third of the cost. And actually result-wise, because it was a new perspective, or again, everybody goes right, this guy goes left when he chose that guy, and the results were, just astronomical compared. And he had to because he didn't have a payroll, but I think that was just a great message for more of the some of the smaller companies out there that think they need to have, maybe the best of the best and have to pay off out of the backside for him. So I don't know. Just some of my takeaways with Billy. I thought was pretty good.
Well, I can tell you when Kyle and I worked with BG, that's basically what we did. There wasn't a ton of talent. We coached and coached and coached. And so many talented people came out of that business. One, because everybody believed in everybody. Brian did a good job of inspire and motivate that they can be a better version of themselves. But when you look at it, it was the consistency of everything that business created. Yeah. Same philosophy, it's.
Yeah, we didn't hire for talent. I mean, really, as being intimate, very intimately involved in the recruiting and really, if you want to talk about protecting culture, you take a look at who you hire and how you hire, but we didn't hire for talent. We defined it as the 3 H's, that we're looking for people that were honest, people that were hungry, and people that were honeable. And if they fit those, it's like, well, then it's just a matter of can they do it? And do we believe that they'll do it? And if all those boxes were checked, it'd be like, man, the talent was secondary.
Yeah. That's a good point. There were some good speakers that were referencing that in terms of recruiting. And one of the things that I did take away, I can't remember who it was. I thought it was in my notes, was talking about making recruiting almost like how marketing is, like with leads. Treat it the same way, right? You get and I think BG's brought this up. Other people have brought it up before, but you get a lead on a possible, obviously, customer, your speed to lead, it's call them right away. Same thing with like recruiting. Go after it with the same intensity.
Yeah. And track it like Billy Bean, right?
There. Yeah.
Really?
Right.
So so I didn't get to go, with like any type of conference event, like anything, if that I'm there, I'm always thinking, man, I wish that my team heard this, or I wish that my sales reps heard this. What are some things, just one or two that you guys took away that, man, I wish that someone that wasn't here was here to hear this?
Ooh.
God,
Kyle with the great question.
It's not a curveball.
I'll tell you one.
Yeah.
I got one.
Go ahead. I mean, I'm looking at my notes. I got a bunch.
So this is driving me crazy because I'm torn. You know, I wish I would have had my COO there with me. I did have my chief marketing officer with me, Macy, and I wish Andy was there. But there was a guy named Ryan Shutt from Southwest Exteriors. I don't know if he's on this group thread or not, but the CEO, and he was talking about, we were talking about it before we started, but, you know, he's putting prices on his page, and it wasn't even so much the prices on the page, it's the value that they're giving to the customer before they show up. And it's, what's that book called? What was I telling you? I haven't read it yet. They ask, you answer.
Yes.
They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan.
Yes.
My CEO actually was listening to that and telling me about it. And then I go see Ryan, but I wish you could have been there. We could have just hunted this guy down and picked his brain, because I think there's something to that on giving a lot of information to your customers, but not giving them information to your customers. It's like, you know, like I was saying before this, I want to come up with 5 easy ways to clean your shower. Right, and have the designer's name and our information on there, and maybe where we make a video and drive them to that, so they drive to our website, so we can start getting these people going to the website, which is going to show them who we are. And then what he did is they actually put prices on there, $1,000 to $3,900 for this window. This, but what they said is the takeaway was that their closing rate went up. They didn't lose any leads. They actually got more leads, and their closing went up when they started doing it. So I'm really driving Andy to start looking into that and building that out. I think there's something to that. If they ask, you answer. Why are we hiding price when it's easier to go talk to somebody that knows that a shower is going to cost anywhere from $7,000 to $50,000? You're already price conditioning. I know it's disruptive, and I know a lot of people are like, dude, you're crazy. I don't know.
Blasphemy. Yeah.
I don't know. There might be something.
I said that guy Marcus spoke. I don't know what event it was. It was a couple months ago in Baltimore, but it was an industry event. And I remember asking Michael Hoy, who's in the group, CEO at Great Day, about it. And he's like, same concept like where you're at, Chris. He's like, that guy's on to something. You know what I mean? Stop avoiding the things that are going to come. I mean, at some point they're going to come up that you need to address. So I thought it was interesting. Kyle, I'll give you mine. And it's more since this is a sales page. And again, I don't know if it's anything necessarily new, and I probably won't do it service. Maybe we can get this guy, John Anglis, on at some point. I've seen him speak quite a few times, and I'll tell you, this was one of this time was nothing that anything bad before, but this was one of my, I thought one of his better, talks. But, I'll kind of preface this by saying, a lot of people shy away from a today only price. And I think it's mainly because of internal fear, right? There's nothing wrong with a today only price if it's obviously presented correctly. And I think where things go off the rails is when either the pre-close isn't done properly, and then it becomes more of a sledgehammer when you throw it on them last second, but also explaining and validating the reason for the incentive. And I'm going to say it at a high level, but he had it kind of obviously well rehearsed, well scripted, if you will. But he was like, think of it this way: customer acquisition cost. And he's like, so let's just say for a second, you sell a customer windows and doors, and the customer, and he's doing this, and he's given this example, like if he had to explain it to a customer, the customer decides to take off the door, remove it from the original contract. Obviously, you're going to remove the price because you're no longer supplying the door and or the labor for that door. So he said, if you look at it he's like, naturally a customer is going to agree and expect that. If you look at a today only price from a cost of acquisition for a customer, which is a very real KPI in business, he's like, we build in our cost of acquisition into our retail price. If the customer is able to move forward in a quicker, with less acquisition costs because less times out to the home, less legwork, whatever, then naturally we can remove that from our original cost because we don't incur it. And I thought it was a unique way of saying it and validating. And again, he did it well more rehearsed, well more practiced, but it's very logical, makes sense. Different way of kind of time value savings, however you want to explain it. But I thought it was really, really good. He's like, why would I still charge you the same thing? Because in this case, you're saving us money on the customer acquisition side if we're able to acquire you as a customer today versus a month from now. You're laughing at me. Are you and Chris texting each other going, this guy?
No, but I believe that John did a great job with it. But I mean, clearly he did a great job with it because even you did a good job of explaining it to me. So I think that that's a great explanation. That's a great justification that can make sense to a homeowner because it certainly made sense to me. But so much of it goes back to your intent and your execution on the entire part of the model, like up to that point. Because you can take a look at any selling system and when executed excellently, very few of them have like pressure, like actually put in there. What comes out, of the pressure, the cheesiness is us not being good at what we do, pushing when we shouldn't push. But yeah, that's a good explanation for it. And, in a crisp appointment, if there was trust with the customer, would certainly make sense.
Yeah. He also brought up a great way to look at it from a discovery standpoint or doing your survey. And he kind of talked about it from with training. He's like, you need to have your reps need to know what product or what problems your product solves. He's like, but then work backwards. And he's like, design your questions off of that. So the answers reveal those problems. And I thought, we've probably all heard about that and talked about that. But it was a good way to kind of, especially in today's day and age where I've been in the home literally before where the customer looks at the homeowner looks, wife looks at the husband and says, they all ask the same questions, don't they? And you're like, oh, right. Yeah. And I thought that was a good way to do it. Hey, here are all the problems our product solves. Now let's develop some questions that can, rightfully elicit these as answers from the customer. Yeah. If it does exist, obviously, if that problem exists, and then he's like, voila, now you have a survey. And I thought that's, good. I think it's good for your reps to truly know what problems your product solves. I don't know if that's always the case with a lot of sales guys and gals in our industry, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't have a product if it didn't solve a problem, right? There'd be no reason to have the product. Yeah. Chris, what else?
I'm just looking through some of my notes and stuff on here. I thought this year was a lot better than last year, I think. Next year is going to be even better because he asked me to speak, so that'll be pretty exciting.
Oh, wow. No pressure. You got 11 months.
Well, now I'll have to go.
Yeah.
So, I was on the podcast, and so he offered it at that point in time. I don't know if he is for real or is just trying to be nice, so we'll see.
Yeah. I got a question for the whole group. I brought this up last year after top 500 last year. And why can't there, speaking of people that couldn't attend and didn't attend or whatever, why aren't there one of these for the and it's going to be taken the wrong way, but it shouldn't be. The actual doers, right? The guys and gals that are out in the field selling to come be recognized as top 500. I don't know how you get the data to make it accurate. Who knows if the data is accurate for top 500 now as a company, but who's the top rep in the country? Who's the second, you know what I mean? Like,
let me check that.
What's that?
Let me check the chat. Oh, I am. I am.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Now we got viewers back up.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? I think I posted it last year, and I know some of the answers because I've seen it and it's unfortunate. And I'll give you an example, ran into an owner. Obviously definitely not going to disclose names. Like, yeah, he's like, I don't like my guys in your group. Excuse me? Like, that's the last thing I thought I was going to hear from somebody. was don't like the guys. And matter of fact, my favorite part is my better half was sitting right next to me. She was like, she doesn't really know much of anything, but she was like, did he just complain about his employees being in a free Facebook group that, she knows enough about that. And I guess his scare is recruiting. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is that the reason why we couldn't pull something like this off where you're worried that reps, I also know that reps it's going to be hard to get sponsorships because typically sponsorships, they want to be in front of owners, people that can make decisions for the business for most of the products that, the suppliers that we use or partners we use in our business. I don't know. Then maybe you pay for
it. Sure would be fun though, huh, Joe? And then, like put together some good content for other sales reps and other people that are in the industry. So.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at, right? You get nothing against some of the speakers that spoke, but some of them, let's say, hey bro, you ain't been in the home since before Moses came down the mountain.
Let's find a way to do it.
I'm not crapping on them because there are some, I'm sure, but I'm like, man, if we had a top 500 for the sales reps, and I know in like the home services side, there's a bunch of that. I know there's some Chuck Thokey's doing it with Top Rep a little bit in terms of the training. But man, I want to know who the top rep in the country is. One call close is what we would, I would say, or maybe not. Maybe it's whatever. Maybe you do it by NSLI. I don't know. Or just flat out revenue. But anyway.
I think it would be huge. It's like I had the opportunity to go meet with a bunch of owners from the Big 12, but, it's no different than getting top reps in a room together. This like we do, it's the mastermind. I mean, ultimately, us three, we've mastermind together on a ton of things, and always good stuff comes out of it. And it's not just, we're fortunate we have most of our talks are sales or something a little bit business, but, you get the top 20 reps, 50 reps in the country, one rep from a state, you know what I mean? Like you get 50 dudes and gals in there that are top sellers and put them in one room. And what are you doing? And what are you doing? And what are you doing? We could probably create a whole new training process out of that.
And I know it's going to happen eventually with all the AI and the voice recording technology, which is a whole nother conversation that's exciting about where this will go. But then I also think about, I was talking with Michael Hoy in the airport on the way out, and, he did a great job on stage. And I mean, literally just an open book about everything they're doing at Great Day. And, he's like, yeah, I was like, just talking about sharing information. At the end of the day, I can share with you. And this is, I think, the difference between growth-minded, fixed mindset, right?
Yeah.
First off, there isn't a ton that's new under the sun. Secondly, and I've told this to Brian Gottlieb before, because he, as you know, and both of you are the same way. You guys are open books. You have an open invitation to come into your businesses to anybody. I can extend that to anybody right now without even asking you to, because I know that's how you guys are. I can show you, and you can get the skin, as I call it. But if you don't have the soul behind it, which is the intent, it doesn't make a difference anyway. Southwest rolled their playbook out years ago, and Delta tried to follow it and almost went out of business.
Yeah.
Right? It's nothing, it's like, here, go ahead, try it. I hope it works for you because great. I'm here, first off, we're not. So I think some of that's a scare, like with reps that are a little like, and you hate to be like negative, but you're like, hey man, I'm not saying what you do is, but it's like, you can't run all the leads anyway. And secondly, you're in one location, not all these. So I don't know how to do it, but I think it would be awesome. I think we could probably get like a testosterone, PRT sponsorships. We could get, what I mean, dude? We could gyms in there. We could get something. Sean Hilgard commented, sales guys in their egos. Yeah, totally. I mean, the entrance to the Coliseum that we host this thing in has got to be this big. And there is going to be just, wow, some egos. But boy, would that be fun.
Yeah. Well, let's do it. I was going to comment earlier when you mentioned Michael Hoy, and because the name was, with what you were talking about, and the name was relevant. And I mean, truly, I've only had one real conversation with the gentleman, but one of my biggest takeaways, which I thoroughly enjoyed, was he does not have a scarcity mindset. That he has an abundance mindset. And there's a lot that you guys have talked about, with the like qualified remodeler, like top 500, and like, do you do this? Like, do you do that? And I really know, and I believe that's an advantage that a lot of companies, sales managers, and I mean sales reps can have, is get rid of your scarcity mindset and go with that abundance mindset. Do things differently. Don't be afraid to share ideas. I'm not being super articulate right now with what I want to portray, but there's just so much good that comes with that abundance mindset, and we limit the industry. We hurt our customers. Like, we don't serve as well as we could when we have these scarcity mindsets.
100%.
Yep.
I posted today in the group the difference between my best versus the best. If I'm focused on being the best, then I'm going to be versus my best. Then I'm usually going to operate from an ego and a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: what if I'm the best in my office, but my office sucks? What are you really the best of? The goal has to be every day to be my best, because then, in Brian Gottlieb's words, you're truly limitless. So if I execute to my best every day, which is a true growth mindset, versus focusing on the best, being the best, everything in my best is in my control. I can't control the other reps in my office. I can't control the other competitors I go up against in the field. But if I focus on doing things and executing at my best, I think the results are going to shock a lot of people. Back to whole process over outcome. But yeah, I think we see a shift, Kyle, to your point, in our industry, at least I have, where you're starting to see more and more people sharing better than I've ever seen. Where back in the day, at least I remember, where it was like everything was close to the chest. Kind of the concept what Chris is talking about with the sharing prices on the website and all that. Remember the original websites was like no product information, company name bigger than ever, and then it was like, call now. That was the whole point of the website. Now you're seeing blogs, which is helpful for customers.
Well, everything's going to come down to execution anyway.
Right?
I mean, the availability of different information out there. I mean, you can find anything if you just want to dig. But it's that, it's just that but just even having the abundance mindset, like versus the scarcity one, it just projects a different energy for the people that you're in and around, your homeowners, your sales office. Like, as a business, you don't seem you are less scared. And
it comes down to not even just that; it's personal. Like, you attract so much more good into your life when you have that. Like, I'm willing to help anybody. Yeah. One thing I want to say is I always talk to the designers, like, a good way to practice question and having a good time, or just giving away or changing somebody's life, is when you go to a grocery store or a gas station, that person behind the counter has to be there. They're not able to go anywhere, right? And Kyle, you're laughing because you probably heard me say this 1,000 times, but when I walk up to them, they all have a name tag. And if it's Kyle, I'll be like, hey, Kyle, what's the best thing that's happened to you today? And they go, I don't know what to say. I don't know. The follow-up question that I teach them is, if you did know, what do you think it would be? And then I got a probe and prod, and they're like, I got paid today. Freaking awesome. And I celebrate that win. And here's what I tell people.
That's right.
You don't know what's going on in that person's life, because I went out of my way to ask them what's the best thing that happened to them. Guys, I'm going to say this, all sales designers on it, I want you to listen closely. That person could have been thinking about suicide, and you just stopped them from killing themselves and changed their life forever. It's no different in the freaking home. Learn how to ask open-ended questions and make somebody feel special, and you will win every time.
I mean, yeah. Well, that's, I mean, why not end it on suicide? Jeez.
When they're behind the cash register, for most people, they have to be there. When they're there for Chris Hermas coming through, they get to be there and they get to experience that. And
100%.
That's your energy, man. And that's That's why you're successful, Chris. And I love you for it, brother. Because it's not just what you do, it's who you are. You know, you did that for the amount of time necessary for it to just become who you are. And now you get to treat customers like that. Now you get to treat people like that, and they get to experience that. They don't just have to be there.
Yep. That's awesome. No, I do agree, though. That's the way to end it, man. Guys, I don't know if we did greater job at our takeaways from top 500 or not, but we tried our best. The real takeaways were what happened on the off hours of the. No, I'm just kidding. At the conference,
if nobody liked it. I had a blast. I mean, I don't know. I had a blast with you guys.
Put it on your calendars next year. I think November 17th, 18th, 19th. Maybe sometime between now and then we can come up with a way to do it with salespeople, and marketing. I mean, there's so many opportunities there to get with the actual doers at the starting point of the funnel, if you will. So I don't know, someday. But guys, appreciate you coming on. Kyle, thanks for the special last minute entry.
Yeah,
super appreciative. Good to see everybody's faces. And any parting words, Kyle?
You know what? I won't try. I will make it a point to be more active on the Facebook group. So that'll be my parting word. It's not much of encouragement, but it'll be a commitment. Okay.
Hey, I figured you were acting like the owner who didn't really appreciate his guys being in the group, which I still laugh at.
Yeah.
She's a flip.
Yep.
Well, on that note, hey, good weekend's happy hour here on the East Coast. Chris, I know you still have a few hours left to your day, so get after it. Kyle, thanks again. And hopefully everyone listens and enjoys and likes all the content that we try to put out and value we try to bring throughout our shenanigans here. So
I love you guys.
yeah, man, same.
Love you guys.
Talk to you. Bye.
Right.